All right, so I'm going to start off with high level. The most important sessions, obviously, you could attend are the ones that you actually practice. So Mondays at 9:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific, we're shifting live prospecting to role playing. We had two amazing conversations, and our goal is going to be start to getting as many people on those calls as possible, because it is quantifiably your valuable skill is the words that come out of your mouth. So remember, all of these things that we talk about, client experience and everything else, and how you earn money, all start with a conversation and a presentation somewhere along the way. So if you're not practicing how to talk to people every day, I had a call this morning with Richard Haggerty. He's the CEO of One Key, which is an MLS in Manhattan, Long Island, like most of Westchester, Northern Westchester, a mentor, a dear friend, and someone who's like a really good visionary who's always kept the association ahead. Whether the people at the association wanted to keep up with what his vision was is a whole nother story. But him and I had this exact conversation today of like, there's so much have you noticed there's like so much like fear mongering around this subject? Anyone else notice this? But the one thing that I've noticed that no one's talking about is what's the solution?
Exactly.
Do you know what the solution is, Victoria?
Sorry, I didn't know I was unmuted. Sorry.
Again, the solution is learning how to talk to people. It is the most valuable skill you have, because here's the reality. Knowing what you offer means nothing if you don't know how to understand what the other person wants. I'll say that again. Knowing what you offer means nothing if you don't understand what the other person wants. I'll use the same example. Every time, it seems recently, that I get on a call with somebody, the first question they ask me is, well, what are you going to do for me? I'm like, nothing, because I don't even know what you want. So how can I do anything? So the answer to your question is nothing. Can't do anything for you. Right. So what makes you different? What are you going to do for me? I don't know. Do I have to pay a commission to a buyer's agent? No. Do I have to use you as an agent? No. Do I have to use do I have to use an agent to buy a home? No, actually you don't. That's not something we're used to saying to people, is it? Do I need to use an agent to buy a home? Well, yeah, it's in your best interest, and there are all these different things. No. As soon as you say no in the beginning of the conversation, do you know who has all the power? You. So before I go through like simplifying this ruling, and this is where all those years I spent on a 30,000 person MLS board, between being on the board of directors, 2 years as the treasurer on the executive committee, and then 2 years as vice president, and having my own brokerage really pays off, because I understand NAR, I understand the code of ethics, and I understand transactional real estate, agency, disclosure states. God bless Florida, states that you just represent the transaction, right? Like we need to get really tactical here. And as you can see, this industry is a place that operates on one principle: crisis care. So you get sick, you go to the doctor, they give you an antibiotic. They don't ever say, well, let's figure out why you got sick and why this is happening. So what is happening right now is people are still getting commissions, they're still co-brokes, and people want to pretend like it's not happening. Except for the people here today and the people in this community that are proactively making a choice to say they want to be ahead. Crisis care is not a way to build your business. So we want to learn the fundamental skills that we need to be great buyer's agents and great listing agents, and take the time to build the base one time, and then you own the skills forever. Who here hasn't ridden a bicycle in 5 years or more? Right? I remember last summer I was in Maldives, and outside my little like bungalow thing, there are these two bicycles. And my partner, she said, let's go ride the bikes to breakfast. And I looked at her, I'm like, I haven't ridden a bicycle in 20 years, maybe more, 25 years. And I got up, it was a little wobbly, and then I was fine. That's the same thing that happens when you actually know. right?
Well, if you want to do an hour-long wash, I would probably do this, but I don't know.
I don't know what she's saying. Sorry, Donna. All right, so let's get through this today, and we'll have some time for questions. All right. So let's go through this and the four like main rule changes. I'm sorry if this is boring to some of you, but you must know this information. Cooperative compensation. So you can still share listing compensations. It can come in the form of a fixed fee, a percentage, commission paid by the buyer, a portion of the listings agent's commission, a seller concession. There are a variety of different ways. For this just to be simplified for all of you, they're not outlawing or making it illegal to offer an incentive or a commission, right? And there's something that I got an email about, which was really valuable. The person who sent the email, I don't think is here today, but they said, if you're offering an incentive, it could imply that you're steering people where one thing is more than the other. Where the reality is, look, in sales, people love bonuses, people love free things, people love incentives. Car dealers use them, furniture people use them, sales on clothes, everyone uses them. So the key in talking about incentives is relating it to the way, yes, to one, the buyer, absolutely. But the second thing is relating it to how people view the world today, right? So if you're going to buy a car, are you interested in the ones that have no incentives or the most incentives? Right? Think about it. So the rule didn't change, contrary to what most of the people say. And there's no evidence anywhere that the commissions are actually all going to go down for this. Everyone's like, oh my God, the commissions are going to go down. Do you know one of the reasons why this ended up happening is because, you know, in a court case, there's 10 plus people between the plaintiff, the defendant's attorney, the prosecutor, a jury, a judge. And even though all of these people agreed on it, the Department of Justice said, and I quote directly from an article, we don't feel that anything's changing as a result of these lawsuits. We have to put a hold on these things being settled. Great, great. What's that, Cherish? Say it again. The Department of Justice said, as these court cases are being settled, remember, they're like, the settlement has been agreed to pending Department of DOJ approval. Well, they came out blanketly and said, well, this is not changing anything. People are still going about doing it because, hey, guess what? Maybe this model works and people are happy. They don't know how chaotic real estate is, let alone if you take all the structure out of it. So cooperating compensation, what do we really need to do? Number one, we need to help people understand the history of this. And I shared this on a call yesterday when I was doing a role play. It's like, are you even aware, or not, are you even aware? That's condescending. You know, did you know the history of like the buyer's agent's commission, the clear compensation agreement that's referenced in here? And they're going to say no, and you should be able to speak to it. In the beginning, there used to be a rule in MLS, as it stated, you had to offer out compensation to a cooperating agent to list your property, which I can completely understand seems on the surface like, wait, this isn't great. This doesn't give me choice. But the part that people don't talk about is the minimum compensation was $1. So essentially you didn't have to offer out much. Now, in the middle of this case, they changed it to offer out $0. So at this point, you get to really choose what you want to do, which you really always had the choice. The second one is, look, if your seller doesn't want to offer compensation or an incentive to a buyer, who cares? Take the listing. In this case, I call it, depending on the scenario, the market, the inventory, there's a variety of stuff. This is like when you have kids. Sometimes your kids, you just need to watch them go through this stuff, make the mistakes, suffer through it, and then come back like, Mom, Dad, like, what should I really do? Should have listened to you the first time. If as parents, we had $1 for every time our kids said that in our lives, we could all be rich. Look, buyer's agents are a luxury service. You need to be able to articulate what you do in the context of what somebody else wants. So August 17th is the D-Day for this, right? You'll see the buyer's agents field disappear. It'll be replaced somewhere by something that says concession, and for most cases, a buyer's agent's fee, commission, whatever you want to call it, is a HUD approved closing cost. So in the semantics of this, some things will change, but that's what you have Compass in your MLS for. They'll figure it out. Like, don't get caught in the weeds. Like, well, how are we going to go about doing this? I'm going to go back to what I said over and over again. I said this on a call in Florida, hundreds of people. And I said, guys, I'm really sorry. I might offend somebody. And I saw Kim Harris's face, Chef Polishek's face, and the other sales leader on there, like, what the hell is he going to say? I'm like, you could spend all your times in the weeds about this, but if you don't learn how to talk to people, you're not going to have anything to complete to get paid. So the rule change only prohibits compensation from being listed on the MLS. That's it. Just like anything, as the world evolves, we'll all find new ways to work in this. And that's really simple. What I encourage you to think about is, how are you going to evolve your model as an agent? If, Cherish, you show someone a property one time and you show somebody a property over 12 months, why should your compensation be the same? Why should this two people that had very different experiences, one required a lot of time, one required little time, have the same exact fee to pay? Things to think about, right? So look, let's all just put our heads down and just keep practicing together. Learn the system, because the system will work for you. So it's May to June, June to July, July. So we have 3 months to do this. If I was in a stage, I'd be like inciting like a rally in action and people cheering right now, right? This is where I miss seeing you all in person, and why I really encourage all of you when we send a date out next week for our AI mastermind workshop. There's 40 seats, so wherever the first 40 people are, those are the people that are coming. And first we start with the principal agents and the team leaders that signed up, and then following we'll open it up to team members if there's still spaces left. So look, just be ready. Some of you have been being ready for the last year, or as Brad Coy says to Chirag, sometimes you talk about this stuff a little too far in advance, like wrap our brains around that. So look, listing agents, we all know what this is, right? You just can't offer compensation to MLS. Things that you're going to want to plan for innovation is, how do you share with everyone that you offer compensation? This is also where your personal websites for your listings become more valuable. So this is where I encourage you to lean into AI. We're working with a company now to try to figure something out where we could build a streamlined solution that our community is like A, preferred pricing, and B, a built system where they can use AI bots to communicate, make appointments, and do things for their properties and listings. Because what are you going to do? You have a great property, you're going to get 25 phone calls that ask you if they offer a buyer's agent's commission. There has to be a way to use AI to streamline this process, because the way that AI works, it's machine learning and it's based on a knowledge base. So you could train a model to essentially do anything. So look, one, as a listing agent, be clear and concise about the choices that are available. Number two, outline the potential outcomes. We talked about this yesterday, playing chess. You need to get really good at your analogies and really good at sharing the information in a question-based format. And remember my favorite words, whatever you decide to do, I support you 100%. Unless you decide to do nothing. In that case, if this is me, I don't support you at all. Have to do something. All right, buyer's agents. We have to practice our buyer's brokerage agreements, right? We need to understand what it is we offer. You need to be ready to answer the question, what do you do in exchange for the compensation you get paid? If you mapped out everything you did, how we talked about it, you'd be able to provide people a list. Have you ever wondered what a buyer's agent does in exchange for the compensation? Here you go. I know these things have so many different bullet points and steps, right? Who's seen the end-to-end seller's checklist we have? It has like 100 different things. Well, You could print that out and give it to a seller. Have you ever wondered what an agent does or a team does in exchange for the compensation they pay? I apologize in advance. There's so many little details under this, but like this is just the list we use to ensure that every step is documented and nothing slips through the cracks. But just take a look at this. You know, no one else has a checklist like that. So you put yourself in a position to win. So what's next for the buyer's agents, right? Let's talk through this checklist. Number one, you need to define your value proposition. Number two, you need to be able to know how to talk about it. Number three, you need to have a buyer's presentation and like, how do you guide a conversation? You need to know how to deliver a luxury client experience. You need to have scripts around answering questions around commission and an objection handling guide. Planning these things out, right? So these are the 6 areas that you really need to master as a buyer's agent. All right, so I'm going to stop this. What questions do you all have here about this?
Can you put the 6, the last slide up again, please?
Yeah.
I haven't finished transcribing.
There you go. What questions do you all have?
I have one. This has kind of been my burning question ever since
good.
all this came about was, you know, a lot of my buyers getting out of that fear, but I still get a lot of first-time home buyers who, you know, barely have enough to put 3 or 3.5% down. And so my biggest concern is, you know, having them sign this agreement that says, okay, my commission is X amount. And if the seller is not willing to pay for this, you're on the hook for it. You know, I'm really worried about how to navigate those conversations, especially because it's hypothetically speaking, because they don't know what property they're going to fall in love with until they do. And, you know, I'm just trying to figure out, I'm an over preparer. And so I'm like, okay, how do I navigate this when that time inevitably comes?
Well, I'm going to take this down. So that is an amazing question. So I will go to a Steve Jobs quote. Steve Jobs said, if you want to make everybody happy, sell ice cream. And Chirag said, well, there's still people that are lactose intolerant. Can't make everyone happy. Everyone can't afford your service. They screwed it first-time buyers, right? Very similar to you, when I started my career, I had all of those same buyers, but not only did they have 3.5% down, they needed 6% seller concessions to close. So I would literally tell them, you can only go to properties that everybody else doesn't want. Because the ones that everyone wants are going to have, generally speaking, offers or opportunities potentially with better terms. We could try a couple, and I would say to people, if you need to go and experience losing for yourself, that's fine. Just as long as we're in alignment, that as long as we try, we'll try once, we try twice, we come back to reality.
Fair.
So what are the percentage of the closing costs in your state?
Generally around 2% or so.
That's great. You can get a 6% concession for FHA.
Yeah, if it's been on market long enough and the seller is willing to do it.
But that goes back to the next thing, right? So
Yeah.
the question for these people is, you're going to have to create the gap, right? And really understand what they need, what they want, what their desires are, what keeps them up at night, and like how much, you know, they're paying you 2.5%, 3% to protect their 97%. I think that's what people forget. It's a lot more than just getting to the finish line.
For sure.
And, you know, you build your value, and look, if they want to waste your time and they have no interest in hiring you, right? Like, because they can't afford it and they know it when they come in, then you might as well use your time to practice on them.
It's true.
Right. Some of these online leads, people are like, oh, but sure. I'm like, practice on these Zillow leads. Most of these people, they don't care who they work with. They're talking to 20 different people. Make the best of it.
Yeah. No, I agree with Tamina's comment too. I guess it's so easy for us to devalue ourselves because you want to help these people so much. But we're also not in the business of giving charity either. So I do find that sometimes it's hard to manage that, you know, wanting to help people, but also taking a step back and having your boundaries and recognizing your value and not devaluing yourself.
Yeah, well, look, I also think like on a human level, this is not an industry that's taught us to have confidence, to value yourself more, right? Like this is not what, it's not what this is.
Fair.
So, and look, here's the other thing. If you like helping people, go volunteer in a soup kitchen or a place that really needs people. It's a lot more gratifying and fulfilling than helping ungrateful buyers and sellers. It's just like, and here's the thing, you want to help these people. Sometimes you make like a deal and these people want something unrealistic and then they beat on you like a punching bag, right? You have to realize one thing, and this is what I would say, arguably maybe the biggest aha moment any of you could have. The second you take on an unrealistic buyer or seller without having a pre-agreed plan to come back to reality, you are taking advantage and creating a disservice for your client, and you're destroying your brand. Logically speaking, if I want to overvalue my house by $200,000 and an agent agrees to it, what logical adult would think that somebody would spend time, money, and resources on something they could never sell? You know, you always hear, if you're here long enough, you hear me talk about my parents, especially my dad, in terms of what I learned for business, his store. And so, you know, he's always been my North Star in business. And so I said, Dad, like, what do I do in real estate? Like, you had any advice? He goes, yeah, just think of it like this store. You know, when you go to sell people's house at the store, would you ever buy inventory at a price so you couldn't put it out and sell it? I go, no. And he goes, that's it. He's like, only take inventory you could sell. The longer it sits there, the more it has to be discounted. And if you're taking that inventory to sell for somebody else, the longer it takes, the more upset they're going to be with you. Unfortunately, or fortunately in my case, when I say this for all of you, learn to say no. I'm sorry, I can't help you. Can I recap the framework? The ACE, acknowledge, clarify, empower. So go back to Mina and watch the recording from yesterday, and it'll go through that. But in anything, right, you want to acknowledge what the person says. You want to clarify, provide clarity around the situation, give them options that empowers them to move forward. Look, I believe this agreement is going to be the single best thing for you, right? People need real estate agents. I don't know what world that they live in that they don't want to protect their 97%. Mavis, you always have good questions.
Okay, I'm going back to the thing you just said about taking overpriced listings. What I'm dealing with right now is a case where I didn't think the listing was overpriced. I really didn't, based on comps and so on, and we're just sitting and sitting and sitting. And I'm trying to figure out how to talk to these people at this point, because I know what their expectation was.
Simple. You're going to say, based on what? I would first go back and say, all right, I just want to review our marketing plan, right? Do you feel there's anything we can improve in the pictures? No. Do you feel like there's more websites or things could be on? No. Do you think adding more open houses? No. Okay. So we could both be in alignment the same way we were when we started. The visual story and the marketing for the house are to meet your expectations. Yeah, absolutely. Great. So really what we're seeing is, based on the value that we're looking to create in the market, it's not one that other buyers are willing to pay for. Based on the value that we're creating in the market, it's not what other buyers are willing to pay for. What do you suggest we do? Right? And then I would ask them, you know, what will happen for you if you're able to sell at this price? What will not happen for you if you're able to sell at this price? And ultimately, if you're not able to, what's your plan B?
Okay. It's funny, I've heard this before, but when you're in the midst of it, sometimes you, it's a
Listen, you
remember
freeze.
practice.
You, number one, you freeze, but number two, you make it over personal. Like I'm hearing you say, like, I don't know what to do. It's not my house. I didn't create the market. I don't set the market. I don't know what buyer, like I can't make value up in my mind. Like your job as an agent is to get people to physically come to the house and look at it. What happens after that? Yes, there's staging, feng shui, how cluttered, uncluttered, like all those things make a difference. But what a buyer chooses to do, remember, you control, I control, no one controls. Shwanda.
Sorry if you answered this, but my internet went out for a little bit. Um, you talked about, of course, that there were going to be like now I just went blank, concessions. That there may be a concession line in the MLS. Did I understand that correctly?
And that's what appears based on what they're saying is gonna happen.
So which means if that does happen, then we
Concession
could
is like the new buyer's commission, right? Like,
which
Uber's the
means
new
if that's the
taxi.
case, we could put the amount there.
yeah,
Some-
that's the workaround until it's not, right? So
An amount will be listed there in the concession?
there is no definitive rule changes. I'm not part of any of these boards, so I can't tell you. But as of now, based on what they're saying and speculating, that's how it's going to show up. It might show up in the agent only remarks. I don't know, and nor have they said it. I have a couple friends of mine. I have the woman who built our CSC brand literally builds MLSs for a living. And I'm actually going to meet with her in person in the beginning of June. So she has built 5 of the largest MLSs in the country. So she has a lot of data that I'm going to get from her. I've talked to Richard Haggerty, who's the CEO of One Key. So I'm actively looking, but they haven't figured this out. Just a couple days ago, first it was July, then it was November, now it's August. Everyone's scrambling just to figure out what to do, right? So the
I mean,
only
it makes,
Let's go ahead, Amy.
I said it makes absolutely no sense because we need to tell the buyer what their responsibility is. We don't have access to the information to share it with them. So
But
it's
here's
like
the
a
thing,
double
you don't know
whammy.
we don't know anything as of today of what's going to happen. What you can count on is
Yeah.
MLSs will do the best they can to support you in putting this together and making it clear. Right, but that goes back to the world of like, how do I know what the compensation is? And if I'm going to if I have a listing, how do I deal with 42 agents calling me because I'm in like a low inventory market? Do you offer out a commission? Do you offer out a commission? Do you offer out a commission? So there's all of these other workflows and additional time in this that no one's thinking of that we need to start planning for. So look,
Yep.
It's 12 o'clock. I have to jump, but just all I'm asking you to do, if you trust me, which I know you all do, just focus on the process we've given you. All of you show up to live role plays because what you don't want to do is practice on your clients when you get into these situations. We will simulate every situation that you can humanly hallucinate or I can dream of in these sessions. Sound good?
Sounds
All
good.
right,
Thanks,
everybody.
Chirag.
With love in my heart, I love you all. I will talk to you all soon. Bye, everybody.